All right. So my name is Emmanuel. I am Emmanuel Mingle, and I am with Ghana Code Club as the lead trainer. And then I'm a cloud consultant. So I do trainings related to the cloud. And then I do some other stuff addition to that. But generally, I consider myself to be what you call a tech educator. And I'm still like sort of refining all of that and then what it means and then what it goes to speak of. So that's one thing. So all things tech, I'm pretty much interested in there. So cloud security, DevOps, and then security in itself, and all things digital, programming, and everything like that. Um, More like your go-to man. All right. So thank you very much, and we'll get started. Oh, chat is disabled. Let me just check on that. Sorry, before we go ahead then. Now, let's get started. So poll time. I think for a number of us, we've actually filled the poll already. So I'll just possibly go ahead and then share. And let me just end that for now, and then share what we had for those. Okay. So, I mean, there were just two questions. Have you used technology to make your work productive? And I believe that for each of us, we've used some form of technology at one point or the other to actually make our work productive. I think 3 out of 5 respondents mentioned that they have used that before. And then one person mentioned that they've not used technology to be productive before. The last person mentioned that maybe at some points they may have used technology to make their work productive. And for the one who said no, I don't understand why they said no though, but it sort of gets interesting because at any point in time, you may actually not know it, but you're actually using some form of tools to make our work productive. Okay, great. Okay, all right. So we'll just go ahead then. So now these are more or less like the objectives I will be going with. Okay, with some additional components in there, and the main focus is in terms of productivity suits. That will be the main thing, but it's not just in terms of productivity suits. Okay, we'll find out what productivity suits are. I mean, some typical examples that we have, and then we'll look at the expansive form when it comes to productivity applications and then tools which are used. And we'll do a bit of focus on the Office 365 product, which is from Microsoft. And then we'll look at the Google Workspace product offering, which is actually from Google. Okay. So that'll be the main thing. So it was actually formerly called G Suite. So if anybody mentioned, let's say G Suite, okay, they are making reference to Google Workspace. I mean, after some rebranding, I think last year, they actually went ahead to rename that workspace. So, I mean, if you look at the period of 5 years ago, you realize that there's been some form of a change in terms of, let's say, the iconography of all of these things, but it still remains the same. All right. Okay. Right. So we'll start off with a productivity suite and then we'll touch on a few things as well. So with the productivity suite, right now, a typical definition would be an application or sets of applications, right, that are bundled together. And then they actually ensure that you are now able to be productive on some certain level of things. Now, for a typical productivity suite which is available, you'd actually have, let's say, a word processor application. You'd have a presentation application. You might have an application for, let's say, spreadsheets. You might have something in terms of, let's say, managing data. So managing data, you can have like, let's say, what we have with Microsoft Access. Okay, so you are managing some form of data. So these are typically what involves the mainstay when it comes to a productivity suite. So I mean, within the curriculum, ICT curriculum, these are the things that they reference. Okay, but one thing you should note is that productivity suite actually goes beyond that. It goes beyond like these mainstay things, and those are things that would actually be looking for it. But within this context or within this definition, right? What are some of the tools that we talk about? Now, we have the free versions, okay, or open source version. Now, when we say an application is open source, it means that anyone can actually go ahead, pick that application from whichever source they have, and then they can modify it to suit whatever they want. That's more like open source. So it's available to everyone for free. They can modify it, they can use it for free without paying anything for that. and then we have the commercial applications. Now, commercial, or let's say closed source. Okay, so there's the open source, there's the closed source. So there's sort of the application, or like let's say the code, okay, the base code, you can actually have access to that. Okay, so that's what we talk about when we say let's say closed source. And so the closed source, we can actually call them at some point, let's say premium. There's the term premium somewhere in there, which combines, let's say, some free products, and then you have to pay for extra features. But I mean, generally for open source application, they are actually free, and then you can use that. For paid versions, you actually have to pay at some point, and then you actually get to use that as well. So these are some examples of, like, let's say, traditional productivity suite or productivity application. Okay, so LibreOffice, OpenOffice, iWork is actually on Mac, Microsoft Office, Office 365, and then Google Workspace. Now, with LibreOffice and then OpenOffice, these are actually uh, open source versions, as I mentioned already. And then iWork is actually based off Mac, or it's actually on Mac. Now, Microsoft Office is something that we actually have to pay for in order to subscribe for that. Now, Office 365 and then the Google Workspace, these are more or less, so they are traditional. They have the traditional components, but they build on that. They build past the traditional points of what we have with the, let's say, the spreadsheet and then all of those things. I'll actually talk about that as we get along. But one thing you should note is that with Microsoft Office and then Office 365, they sort of merged that now. So it's sort of like almost the same office, right? So Microsoft Office has evolved over the years. So, I mean, at some point, you have Office 2007, Office 2010, 2013, 2016, and then all of that. But you realize that if you look on your application, on your laptop now or your PC, for most people, let's say using a Windows 11 machine or Windows 10 machine, you might actually have just the Office 365 offering available. Okay, and from there, you're able to access the Word and everything. Now, these are more or less like cloud-based offerings. So even though you are having that on your PC, most of the time it's actually connected to the internet, where you can store the files and all of those things from there. Okay, so these are some examples of the traditional, let's say, productivity apps, or let's say the productivity suite that we talk about, right? Now, I mentioned about the Office 365 and then the Google Workspace. As we go along, I would actually talk about, let's say, what makes them different and what makes them go beyond, I mean, the regular things we have when it comes to the traditional productivity suite. Okay. All right. Now, so we'll actually look at, let's say, some different forms of productivity suites as well. And I mean, I have two listings here, which are actually not, let's say, we'll not call them productivity suites, but I mean, since I'm talking about automation, I felt to add them. Okay. Now, before I go ahead, let me just talk about this before I go ahead. So productivity, right? I mean, we talked about the poll that we looked at. I mean, if you go back to the poll, you see me talking about these things that make our life simpler or make our work simpler. Okay. And that's what we are looking at. And then there are many applications that you could actually look at. Okay. Now, there are various categories or various forms that you can have. I mean, I asked in the poll which application or category of application you actually use. And you can have different forms of that. You can have automation, you can have storage, you can have, let's say, communication, you can have team collaboration, you can have, I mean, different forms, like, let's say, tools to actually help you focus. Okay. And that's what we are going to look at. I mean, just a listing of all of those ones. We might maybe at some point just try to take a test run with a number of them and then see how they work. There are some we are probably conversant with already. So we don't necessarily have to, let's say, take a spin on that or go with that again. Okay. All right. So first one is IFTT. Now, I think as far back as 2014 was when I started using IFTT. Now, what I actually used it for was that, so I had a blog and I had a Facebook page, I have a Twitter page, and I wanted to make sure that once I actually post on my blog, right, it's able to now pick that, share that on my Facebook page for me, share that on my Twitter page for me automatically. Okay, that's some form of automation. And IFTT does that, like, I mean, seamless. So it has different integrations with different softwares you can actually, or different applications. So you have to just authenticate on their server, and then you can now go ahead and then send these forth. So let's say, whatever action. So it's more or less like an action and then a reaction. So if there's a particular action, then something happens. So let's say, even I remember one integration that I found very interesting. So if you actually uploaded something into your Google Drive or whatever cloud storage you're using, you could now go ahead and then, let's say, make a copy of that onto another cloud storage. Okay, so once you upload, you're able to now send that somewhere else. So these are like very automatic stuff or automated stuff for you that you could use. Now, another application you could consider is shortcuts. Now, this actually exclusive to iPhones. And I think some few months ago, I saw someone sharing a video on that and how it works. So they were it was very interesting. I think it was used to, the person was actually giving a tip on how to use that to download some videos like automatically. And then you just go ahead and then make that happen. So, I mean, these are things that you could use across your iPhone or on your iPhone, iPad, and then you can just use that. So you just create, let's say, some form of shortcut. So in that person's case, just to download a video, right? And then there are vast number of things that you could just use that for. So just with that one click, you don't have to, like, let's say, copy the link and then paste it somewhere. No, you just have that on the side and then you are able to download that. Now, Zapier is mostly used by businesses or, like, let's say, the business field. Okay, so let's say you have a marketing funnel or something at that point, and then you want to expand on that, let's say, on that particular form of your marketing funnel. So you just want to process. So let's say someone types in the email, you want to give a feedback via email, or you want to send them like a welcome message, or let's say the person has reached a certain threshold of, let's say, 3 days or 4 days of using your product or viewing your product. Now, Zapier can actually help you now connect these business components. So just, let's say, an email at some point in time, or like manage a newsletter. These are things that you could actually use, and these are automated. So you don't have to type out the email every time. You have that done one time. You have some parameters that are given, and then it's able to proceed for you. Now, I added the extra bits for those who are more technical or who want to be technical about it. So you have some Bash scripts and then some Python scripts that you could use. I mean, on your own system, if you are up to it, you could actually go ahead and then use that. And if you are interested, I think there's a book, Automating the Boring Stuff with Python. Okay, they have some pretty cool automating stuff that you could use to just make your work productive. Okay, now within the tech space, let's say someone managing a server, like a bash script becomes very necessary, let's say, to automate, let's say, sending out alerts or creating backups or something like that. And then these are also part of like things that you do to actually make you productive at some point in time. So if you are interested, you could actually look forward to that. And I think later in the afternoon, I'll be talking about something to do with Python, okay, using Python to actually send out emails, not emails, to send out messages. Okay, so that's something you could actually look forward to at 1 p.m. Okay, but these are things that you could actually use to automate some process so that you don't have to go through that over and over again. And once you're actually able to adopt this, it makes what everything seamless for you, and then you become more productive in the end. I mean, that's what we are actually looking at here. All right. We're going to go ahead to the next category, but as we go along, please, if you have any questions at all, you can just go ahead and then leave them in the chat. And please do let me know if you can still hear me though. And we'll just go ahead as it starts. All right, so the next bit we are looking at is email services. And I believe we are pretty much conversant with email services. Okay, so if I talk about Yahoo, everyone is conversant with Yahoo. If I talk about Zoho, maybe some people may not be aware of that, but that's also a mail provider. We have AOL, we have Proton Email, and Proton Email is actually known for their security. Okay, so they are known for more security, more encryption. I mean, someone who is security conscious, that would be like a go-to something for you. And then we have iCloud Mail for those of us who are pretty much conversant with that. And then in addition to that, we have the temp mail and then the disposable mail. Okay, now let me just start on these a bit. I mean, we are conversant with the rest of them and what they do, but the disposable mail and then the temp mail are actually, let's say, great additions. So let's say, I think, let me just open, that here. Let me just open the disposable mail. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I think it can actually speak for itself. So we can have that. Okay. All right. So this is what the terminal does. So it actually allows you to have a temporary email. So let's say you want to test out a product or a service, but you don't want to be flooded with so much email. I mean, nobody wants so much email. I think there are some people who have like thousands of messages in their platform and then they don't really know what to do about it. But this becomes very helpful because you can just get a temporary email. So this email here, and then I can use this email to sign up for a particular service. Now, once I sign up for that service, what happens is that they will just send me whatever email I need within this space. Okay. I don't know. Let me see if I could, if we can try something here. I don't have that. Give me a second. I just want us to try. I want us to try something where would actually send an email to that particular email. Let's see how it's going to look like. Um, okay, just to see that it works. It definitely should work. All right. Okay. Ah, okay. The email did not come through, but at some point it should actually be able to show. Maybe the email did not send at all. Right. Okay. Yes. So there's that. It actually took a while to come, but I mean, you can see the email here that I sent. Okay. Now, once I close this particular window, okay, it means that I can be able to access this particular site again. But it becomes um, very helpful. I mean, as I mentioned, if you just want some temporary place to be able to access a set, okay, but after it's done, you can actually not use that again. And you can see from here, they give the option of how long you want this particular email to last. So let's say it can be a 2 week something, it can be a temporary something, or like anything that you want to do with that. That's really up to you. And I think they actually have some passwords that you can actually log into. Okay, so let's say I set the expiry to be like, let's say 2 weeks, right? Now, you notice that the time has changed here, right? It means that anytime I come back and then I want to possibly log in, I could possibly do that with the email and then the password. Okay, so that's for the temporary email for you. All right, great. Okay, so those are that's that for the email in terms of what we have, and then the terminal also does the same thing actually. So you can just go ahead with that, whichever form you want to go with, and then you're good to go. All right. Now, the next thing is in terms of cloud storage. Okay, so we have Mega, Dropbox, P-Cloud, SugarSync Box. All of these are available for you. Now, the good thing with a lot of these cloud storages is that you actually have, let's say, some amount of storage that you can have. So I know that Mega at some point, when I joined Edition, they actually gave about 50 gigabytes of storage. And I think I've used about 30 of those already. And I have about 20 something or 18 something left at that. Yeah, I have some bit of that left. Dropbox, they also give some form of free initial offering. P-Cloud also does give something like that. You have SugarSync, Box, all of these give that, right? Now, you have also Amazon S3. Of course, this to do with the cloud, this like native cloud or a cloud provider itself. So you have to interact with the cloud dashboard to be able to store these files. And if you are, let's say, an application developer, you are building an application, it could be a go-to place because now you could actually integrate that cloud storage with whichever application that you are building. If you are using Mega, for example, I've not really checked out their API or let's say their how do you call it, their connections with so API is the application programming interface. So how that particular service can interface with whichever application that you are developing. But in this case with Amazon, it's pretty much straightforward to go with that. Okay, and that's like it's very much easy to go with. But I've not checked out, let's say, with these other ones, but they can give you that option as well. But Amazon S3 becomes like a widely used service. So even for a service like Netflix, they actually use S3 to actually store the movie. So whichever country that you are, they actually store it so that it becomes like very much accessible to you. But that's just something for the other side. But these become very much of what necessary. I mean, to keep files and to make sure that what they are available to you wherever you find yourself. So even if you are not in the house, you left your laptop in the house, you can still be able to access the files. And that's like a good way to go, because in that way, you actually have access to your files wherever you find yourself. Now, I added another option here, which is Telegram. Now, I mean, for those who know Telegram, it's actually primarily we call that a messaging app. Okay, but Telegram is very expansible, and then it has different, helpings and then sevens in there. I think at some point, if we have some time, I think we certainly might have some time. Okay, so we'll actually go over some hacks. I mean, I use Telegram a lot extensively, and I'm not trying to market Telegram anyway. I'm just going to share on a number of things with I do with Telegram, or how it becomes very interesting to use. Okay, so you can do some storage in there. Okay, and then you can actually have different folders that you actually put them in, make it private for yourself. I mean, we'll talk about all of that, but Telegram has some offering for storage. And interestingly, for now, I mean, if you read Telegram white papers or Telegram blogs, the one thing they would say is that for the storage, you have unlimited storage, okay? But at any point in time, the highest form or the highest size you can upload for a file would actually be 2 GB. So anything beyond 2 GB, you can actually upload that file. That's pretty huge. I mean, considering all of, and then you can have like about, let's say, thousands and thousands of 2 GB files that you can upload, and then you can have access to at a later time. Okay, so that's that for the cloud storage. Okay, all right. So we'll go forward and we'll look at note-taking applications. Now, there are many times you have to maybe jot something down, and then you just be wondering, how am I going to get this done? Okay, and these note-taking applications make it easier. Okay, so you don't have to necessarily write it down. Okay, but you just have to type it out. I think I remember a saying. I don't remember who actually said that, but he was like, if you put something down, let's say with pen or a pencil, the faintest of pens or the faintest of pencils can actually uh, is actually enduring more than, let's say, just keeping something in mind. Okay, and the same thing applies when you actually have to now move from, let's say, the pencil or the pen, and then you have that stored on whichever application that you're using. Okay, so you can have Evernote, you can have Notion, you can have Simple Note, Notability, Google Keep, Huawei Notes, Galaxy Notes, and then I mean there are quite a lot, like seriously, quite a lot of notes that you can actually use. Okay, so whatever works for you, you can go with that. Now, the last 2 years, we have the Huawei and the Galaxy. I mean, based on whichever phone or device you are using, you could actually have, they might have a native note application, okay, that you can have installed on that for you. And within those notes, you can make different notes, maybe different colors and then different themes and all of those things available to you. I think at some point, you're actually going to review the Google Keep. I use that a lot as well. Uh, Very much seamless because it just works with all the Google Workspace tools. Okay, I'll show you how that works like. But that becomes one thing that you could look for to make it productive. All right, all right. I'll share the slide probably when I'm done. I'll just maybe share that. So just remind me at the end of the session. Okay, remind me at the session to actually um, do that. Okay. All right. Okay. So these are uh, things that you can actually use to take notes. And then these are very important because once you're done, it means that you could actually have access to that at a later time. Okay. All right. The next thing is collaborative platform. And we have Slack, Trello, Audio, Asana, Teamwork, and I mean, there are quite a lot of different ones. So for Trello, for example, um, let's see something here. Okay. I don't have my Trello board open. I think it would be good to see how Trello looks like. Might just give me a second. Let me just log in. I do not really intend to show that, but I think it would be good to have that shown as well. Uh, okay. All right. Okay. So all of these things are what we call like collaborative platform. Now, when we say collaborative, it means that you're working with different people on different tasks. And for all of these ones, for Podio, for Asana, for teamwork, all of these are really much helpful in that sense. Now, if you are someone who is more into what we call, like, let's say you are in a developer space or a developer setting, one of the things you actually gets to realize is that for all of these things, right, or all of these bots, you can actually get to communicate so much. And mostly, let's say, if you're a developer, like a full-blown developer, they use like different tools to actually communicate. They go with the traditional ones, but in order to merge or to make sure that they're able to keep track of their code, so they use like, let's say, the Azure DevOps board, for example. They could actually go with, let's say, the GitHub boards as well. Okay, I mean, there are quite a lot of those, but those are more geared towards those ones. But for anyone who'd actually want to create a board, I mean, these are things that you could work on. Let's see. It's been a while I actually have it here. Okay, sure. So, I mean, this is a typical example, right? So for something like this is actually assigned to me. Okay, so I mean, I have that assigned to myself. There's like a task to be done, right? So then we can say, that, okay, this person is doing this. Now, once I'm doing that, I could just move that here, okay, and then it tells me that, okay, I'm actually the one doing it now. Now, if I'm done, I could just go ahead and then move that to done, okay? And then we could have like, let's say another headed, let's say a review, and then someone could review that. And let me see. Okay, yeah. So I could have a review here, and then from here we could also assign someone to the review. Okay, yeah, yeah. So I can assign someone, and the person knows that, okay, I'm the one actually using this. Okay, so this is what I actually mean by collaboration, and all of these tools that are mentioned here. So with the Slack, Trello, Podio, Asana, all of these things actually are very helpful if you have to collaborate on like some form of work. And everyone can actually see the board within the organization or within the team, and then they can work with it as they go along. So these are things that you could actually use. And I think there are different ones. I think with one team I was working, we actually had a Monday board. That's the name of it, Monday. And I mean, there are different ones. I think ClickUp is actually one that you see the ads so much on Google and all of that. But those are the things. So there are different forms that you could actually work with, and these make the work much easier. Okay, so if there's anything, you can easily attribute to whoever took part in that, and then you actually make that possible to work with. All right. Right. So we'll go ahead, and then this where we are with the communication. So we actually now in different places, and then different parts of where we are, but we are still able to communicate because of these two. So we have GoToWebinar, we have Cisco WebEx, we have Telegram, WhatsApp, Signal, Slack, WhatsApp, Zoom. I mean, all of these are tools that you can actually use for some form of communication and then meetings. So I think I left Google Meet, but maybe I'll talk about that when we actually dive deep into the Google Workspace tutorials, or like the walkthrough with Google Workspace. Okay, but these are some tools that you can use. And you notice that Telegram actually still stands here, okay, because it's primarily a communication tool, okay, to communicate, but it has the added advantages like I spoke about with the chat, for example, okay. And then we have WhatsApp here, which we are very much conversant with. And then we have Zoom, which we're actually using to communicate or speak now. Okay, so these are some examples in terms of the communication and then meetings. And I'm sure there are some others that we may know of. I mean, if you know some, you could actually share these tools in the platform as well, and then we see how that goes. Okay. All right. Okay. Right. And so I think this might be the last maybe set of tools I'll talk about, and then we'll try and then do a walkthrough in terms of the Google Workspace, and then the Office 365, and then finally the Telegram. Okay, just to give like some bit of guidance as to some of the things you can actually do from there. Okay. Now, in as much as technology helps us to be productive, right? it becomes more or less like a distraction. Okay, so how do I now sort of get myself in tune with what I need to do? So there are also some tools that help you to be rather, I'll call it like, let's say, extremely productive. Okay, so an example of that is a Homo Focus, and then we have Pocket. Now, Pocket, if you actually use Firefox, for example, they have Pocket in there. Okay, so you can just keep track of, let's say, things that you want to work on. So you just have them in, like, I mean, as the name sounds, like some form of pocket, and then you can just focus on the items within those pockets. And then we have, how do you call it? Stay focused. Okay, that's one of the tools you can also use to do that. Now, on my phone, for example, I have this tool which actually blocks the network from whichever other applications. So I just make sure that within a certain period of time, I just block the network or network access to some apps. So let's say my WhatsApp or something. And then I know that with that, I can't actually use the WhatsApp. Okay, so that could be an example of an application. I've forgotten the name. Maybe if I get that, I could also share that as well. Let me see if I can find that. Okay, yeah, that's NetGuard. Okay, so let me just put that in the chat. You would actually look forward to that. So it just gives you the option to block out some specific application. And I think on Android, iOS, they have lots of those things. Even my phone has some focusing tool built in, digital balance, where it actually now keeps track of like the number of hours you are spending on the application and then using some specific app. So you can give some applications, let's say, a limited time. So you can give like, let's say, 15 minutes for some applications. You can give unlimited time. Let's say for Office apps, you have unlimited time for that. And then these actually help you to focus along. Now, I'd want us to look at the Homo Focus. It's actually based off a method called Pomodoro. Okay, let me just show that. Now, there are different Pomodoro apps or digital apps um, that actually capture or work with the Pomodoro technique. Let me just do this first. Pomodoro technique. Okay, let me just show what the Pomodoro technique is. Right, so this like this was developed actually from some time back, okay, and then it just talks about working in blocks of 25 minutes. So typically, you'd actually go for, let's say, the first 25 minutes, you take a break of 15 minutes, 25 minutes again, take a break of 15 minutes, and then, no, the first break actually is about 5 minutes or so, yes. So the first break is actually a short break, which takes about 5 minutes, and then you have a longer break, which actually takes like 15 minutes. So the first two sessions that you have, or the first two Pomodoros that you have 5 minutes break, and then the third Pomodoro would actually take a 15 minutes. Okay, so that actually keeps you focused. So this is the Pomo Focus. Okay, there are actually different apps online that actually make this work. So I could add, let's say, a task here. Let's say, yeah, okay. Okay. Right? And then I can estimate, okay, maybe this will take me about 2 hours. Okay. Now, 2 hours would be, if I break that down into, let's say, 25 minutes, that would be about, let's say, four or something. So let me just put in four. So four would mean that I have 25 minutes, that's 50 minutes. And then 50 minutes, like, that would be like about 1 hour, 40 minutes. So I can make that at five, right? Now, what it adds is that it adds, ouch. Yes. So it actually estimates, let's say, the time for me of how long that would actually take me to complete, right? So once I'm done with that, I could actually start on that. And then it just gives me, so within that time, I'm able to focus on that particular task. Now, if I'm done with that, the first 25 minutes, I could now go ahead and then take the first break, okay? And then you're done with the break, you come back. So it sort of gives some very good form of focus. And I mean, that's one of the tools I use some point when I need to like work on very intensive tasks, okay? And this is like very important. So these are tools that you could actually look out for. I mean, when you are working out for things that will help you to actually be productive. Okay, so promo focus, pocket, stay focused. You can actually look out for NetGuard as well. And then I think now with the mobile phones, they have lots of they have lots of tools that would actually help you to remain focused. Okay, because as much as the phones or the gadgets are helping us to be productive, right? They still have some form of a distraction. So these things actually also help out with everything. All right. So those are in terms of the tools, right? But I want us to just take some bit of a quick dive in terms of the Office 365, the Google Workspace, and then finally we'll actually look at some bit of demo with Telegram. Okay, so we'll start with the Office 365. Okay, this here. Okay, all right. All right, so we'll start with the Office 365. Now, if you look to the left side, okay. If you look to the left side here, right? I mean, you have Word, you have Excel, PowerPoint. These are all, how do you call it? These are all native tools that we have. Okay. Now, if I click here, they have quite a number of options. Okay. Now you have the calendar. I know we need to talk about calendar, but this also becomes very helpful. I mean, working with your calendar. And then you have Clipchamp. I'm not really sure what this is used for. We have Excel. I mean, we are pretty much used with Excel. We have lists, we have forms, OneDrive for cloud storage. I think they give 5 GB of free storage. I mean, if you have a basic plan. And then depending on whichever organization you are in, if your organization actually uses, let's say, the Office 365 offering, you could have as much as 15 GB. Okay, so for school like this, I had about 15 GB of storage for OneDrive. But on my personal account, okay, that actually gives me 5 GB. So these are some of the things that you actually have to take note of. And if you want some more storage, you have to pay for that. Okay. And then they have another offering for note taking. So OneNote, okay, where you can actually go ahead and create notes. For one of the courses that I took, we actually had the OneNote as, let's say, the book that we used to actually take whatever lessons that we had to take. And it was very interesting to see. So for various weeks, you're able to organize all of those. I mean, it's just about what you can imagine to do, and then you can do that with OneNote. And then Outlook is for the mail. So if you want to send out an email, you can actually do that. We have the group share for the contacts, the people for contacts. And then we have Power Automate. So I talked about automation, right? Now, Power Automate actually syncs with the Microsoft Office platform. And I remember we had an automation team when I was with one company. And what they did was that at the start of every week, I mean, they actually use that to automate how people actually place orders for lunch. So at the end of the week, they actually you are able to actually now place your order. So maybe you want to take this and this within the week, and then you place the order ahead of time based on like the Power Automate. So you submit that, and then it adds that to a listing that they have already. I mean, there are so many things you can actually look out for. And if you look online, I think Microsoft has lots of sessions, and then they have certifications, some free ones that can get you started on Power Automate as well. So you can actually look ahead for that. And then I think you can look at the to-do apps, to-do task as well. You have Word, and I mean, they have different things that you can look out for. These are like the offerings that Microsoft 365 gives you. Okay. Interestingly, I don't use this extensively, mainly for work most of the time. The one I go with for most of the time is actually the Google Workspace, okay, which I'll probably just show that next, okay. All right, but as we're going along, so if you have some questions, please feel free to ask that. Okay, right, so this for the Office 365, and no, the Google Workspace, sorry. And these are the offerings of the tools that they have built into the Office 365. Now, depending on whichever, oh, that's not what I was looking for. Okay. All right. So depending on which service you are using, or let's say the offering that you're using, if you are using, let's say, the enterprise form or the paid version, you might have more tools than others. But if you're using the free version, there's just a limited amount of tools that you can easily use from there. All right, great. Right. So they also have some different offerings. I mean, we know Google Search, we know Google Maps, News Play. Now we have Gmail for the email. Okay, we talked about emails. We have the Google Meet where you can actually use for meetings. You have chat in there as well. You have contacts. You have Drive for cloud storage. You have Calendar for scheduling stuff, translate photos, Ad Center. I mean, for business stuff. This is also for messages and all of that. Conferencing and then calls, among other things. And then you have the traditional docs, sheets, slides. I mean, with what we talked about initially with the productivity sheets, these become like traditional stuff. But you see that they've added more things in there as well. All right. I want us to look at the Google Keeps for starters, and then we'll come back to the others. I know that we are more conversant with the, let's say, all the other things with docs and all of that. But one thing with Google is that they actually combine or they put everything together. Okay, so I'm going to do a few things here, and then we're going to see how that works. So this will be my first note, yeah, right? And then I could save that. And I was talking about customization, right? So you can customize that with different colors and then different themes. If you are using dark mode, you have like different themes also available to you. Okay, yes. So with this, you can pin whichever tweets, whichever notes that you have, and these become like things that you can use later. All right. Now, if I come back here within my Gmail application, you notice that the notes is actually represented here, or it's also part of the things that we have here. And these notes are here. Now, if I open the first email that I have, okay, and then I type a note here. So let's say I receive an email, right? And then I want to actually respond to that email later. I can add that to my notes. And you notice that automatically that particular email is featured here. That reminds me that, okay, now I have to look at it from within this email. So this is to be reviewed at 2 p.m. Right. Now I have that done. Now, if I come back to my notes, you see that that is actually added here for me. Now, if I'm within my notes and I want to review that, I could just go back, click here, and then it actually sends me to my email. Now, all the various applications within the Google Workspace, a lot of them are actually linked in this way. So you can still make notes of things that you need to do. So let's say I'm in the Google Sheets, for example. Yeah, so you notice that here it actually brought me to this particular info. Okay, so that's the linkage there. Now I'm within the sheet, and then I open a sheet from here. Let's see a to-do list. Okay, now it's also based here, or it's also added here for me. So I could just go ahead and then make a note as pertains to this particular sheet. So let's say add symbols or something like, I mean, just something like that. And then that also links that to the notes for me automatically. So that also helps, I mean, to just be very much of like, to maximize your time and then maximize whatever you are doing. Okay. And anytime I click on this link, it actually sends me there. Now, aside that, they have some form of reminders. So you could actually set a reminder, let's say later today at 8 p.m. And then I could actually have that done. Or you could set a reminder that actually repeats. So I could set like, let's say, a daily reminder for myself. I mean, as pertains to this to-do list or whichever notes that I'm using. I could have like, let's say, daily, yearly. You can set some form of custom approach to that. So let's say every 2 days I could do that. And you can set the number of times it actually occurs. And then you have different options for you. Okay. If you want to, let's say, select a specific day also, that's also possible for you. But the good thing is that it's actually linked together. So I could set this reminder so that I can be able to review this for myself later. And then if you look here, there's also a particular feature, that's the task feature, which can also be used later. So not just the notes, you can just set, let's say, a task that you can accomplish later on. Okay. And then you can also set with that the time. So the date and then the time. You can repeat it if you want. Let's say some specific day, some specific time, which time you actually want this to be done. And anytime you do that, it actually brings a pop-up to just give you a reminder of that. And still with the keep, I think that's what I'll probably want to focus on. The good thing is that you can also group items together. So let's say work, okay. Now that actually gives me a tag that I could work, okay. And then I could have, let's say, enjoyment, maybe enjoyment here, right? And that sort of captures that for me. If you look here, okay, on the left side, I could just go ahead and then select enjoyment, and then all the notes related to that can be easily accessible. If I want to look at the work, I mean, these are also things for me. And these are actually labels that you have, and you can add multiple labels. Let's say cool, you can add different ones. And so anytime you actually make a note or you add a note, you can just add those to it. So with this particular note, for example, you see it tells me which sheet I'm referencing. It tells, like, let's say I've set a reminder for something else, and then it tells me which particular label I want to use that for. Okay. And then finally, you could also add someone to collaborate on whatever note you are working on. So if I want to collaborate with myself, I could go ahead, type the email here, and then an invite will be sent to myself. Okay. Yes. So then I could just send that, and then I'm able to have access to it wherever I find myself. Okay. So that's one of the good things in there. And so just adding that to the other side, it makes it simple. And I mean, you're able to keep things together. You're able to make things work out for you. You could always go ahead and then explore this for yourself when you get the time. I don't know if anyone has any question based off this. You could just go ahead and then ask. I have one last demo to do with the Telegram. So if you have any question as of now, you could go ahead and then ask that as well. But let me just do this. I have a poll. I'll just launch that, and I want our feedback on that. Okay. So I've opened the poll, and I'll just stop my screen share now, for now, as I open the Telegram. But you can go ahead and then fill the poll. If you don't actually see the poll, just go to look at the bottom of your screen on your phone or on your PC. You see polls, just click on that, and then you see the poll showing there as well. All right. Okay. All right. Let me share back my screen here. I hope you can all see my screen though. All right. We have about 3 people answering the poll. I mean, the rest of us, if you can go ahead and then answer that, that will also be good. Okay. Right. No worries. So maybe I'll just end that now. And I mean, I think the poll was just to find out how this was helpful to you. And I believe for those of us who actually did respond, we found that very helpful. Okay. For some reason, I'm not able to see the long answers because I would have been very glad to see how this would have been helpful for all of us. Okay. But no worries. Let's just take a look at the last segment, which is the Telegram bit. Now, I said this earlier, and then probably I'll just add that this is not an endorsement or let's say an advertisement for Telegram, but I find Telegram very helpful in so many ways. So I just wanted to share that. Now, one thing about Telegram. So I mean, yesterday when I was putting things together for this session, one of the things I actually did was to share along with this message. Okay, so this was actually sent at let me streamline this a bit. I was checking out a few things as well. Let's see that. All right, great. So I had this done, and this tells me that what this message was actually sent at 3:48 yesterday. Okay, now, but I see the timeline here, or the time that was shown here to be how do you call it, to be 10:35. Okay, that's more or less like this could be more or less a reminder or scheduling ahead of time, which becomes very helpful. So I'd actually scheduled that for 10:35 because I believe that I would have probably gone to do the demo for Telegram. I think it took longer. It's almost 11 now, but no worries. So this was actually sent at 3:48 yesterday, and then we received that at 10:35. So that's one of the things you can actually do with Telegram. You can actually schedule a message. And so based on, let's say here, whichever chat that you are in. So hello, um, I could just right click on this site and then I schedule the message. Okay, so based on the time that I want to do that, I could schedule that ahead, the date and then the time, and then I schedule that. And then that becomes like a part of a list of scheduled messages that are available. Okay, now we saw with the notes, you could actually go ahead and then create some hashtags. And you can see that I have some hashtags here. That's the ADS 2022. So if I just click on that, I'm able to see all the messages that have that particular tag them. Okay, so that helps in terms of what putting things together. So you can have, let's say, different things together or different listings. And then with that particular tag, you can actually go ahead and then use them. So Ian Mingle, I could just set out. And this becomes helpful, especially if you want to actually locate some form of messages. So you have some messages from before, you're able to now keep track of all of those ones. And now you have a personal space, which is the saved messages space. And within this space, whatever you put here is not accessible to anyone outside of yourself. So you are the only person who can access this. And it becomes like, let's say, your personal storage or something that you store for yourself. So you just have to take note of it and then make sure that what you have those files accessible to you, and then you have those files easily accessible to you. Okay, so that's for the saved messages. So you can store, I mean, based on what I mentioned in terms of storage for Telegram, you have like unlimited storage available to you. The only thing or the only underlying feature is that the files that you send would actually have to be, how do you call it? Should not be above 2 GB. I wish I could, let me see if I could probably show something like that. Um, hmm, Come in, give me a second. Okay, yeah. So I'm trying to send a file which is larger than 2 GB, and then you just see what will be their feedback. Let's see. Okay, I was trying to send it, but it wasn't coming. But probably we'll just look at that later. But that's one of the things that you should note with that. And then in addition to that, right, they have the public and then the private channels. Now the public channels are channels that you can share with anyone. So you go to how do you call it? You go to a new channel, okay, and then you can specify the name of that, whichever description. So with this, right, how I use this is that, let's say I have different channels. Let's say I want to be learning about something, right? So I can have a channel, let's say Quap Stars Learning, and then that's created for me. Um, and I can specify. Now, let's say I'm putting some resources that I want everyone to be able to access, that I could make that a public channel, and then I save that. Now, I'll have to give that a name because it's a public channel. So let's say Quap Stars Learning, and anyone on Telegram can actually be able to access it when they look out for this particular name. Okay, so let's say I have a team, and then I want them to be able to access that. That becomes very much easy for them, and then you have the link as well. Sorry about that. All right, so that's one thing. At this point, I don't really need to add members, so I'll just skip that. And then this is actually created for me. I could also have a private channel where, let's say, just myself. So let's say, yes. So I could have like something like this. That's also created for me. And then once it's created, I could now specify that what it's a private channel. So only people that I invite can actually join. Now, that looks safe, that appears safe, but I mean, if you have very sensitive material and then you are using these parts, one of the places I would suggest is to use the save message, because with that one, there's no link attached to it, so no one can actually access that particular page. But if you use, like, let's say, a channel like this, someone can still be able to access it at some point in time. All right. Aside that, we have different bots. You have YouTube downloaders. You have, I mean, there are various bots that you could actually work out for. or look out for. So let's say different ones that you could use to set for materials. And the bots, what they do is to just, in terms of automation, right? So they just help you to automate stuff. So let's say instead of you going to download a file, it actually downloads it for you and then stores that on Telegram servers because it's free. Okay. And then you can actually use that. And then with the channels, as I mentioned, right, you can have that segmented. So I can have different channels for different purposes. And then there's the saved messages, which I've talked about already. And then I was actually thinking about a project. I don't know if anyone is interested, maybe we could just partner on that because with Telegram, as it stands, you can have Telegram for free. You can store literally any file you want for free. It doesn't matter. If you want to store 1 TB of files, you can store that. But of course, you don't have to exceed 2 GB for a file, right? But I'm thinking that maybe at some point we could actually build a bot where you can actually sync your PC. So let's say I can sync all the files of my PC and then I'll back them up to Telegram. I mean, those files that are less than 2 GB in storage. That would be a good bot to have. But the only thing I'm thinking about is just how to get that started. But that's like a future project. And I think anyone could actually possibly look at that at some point in time also. It will be a good thing to actually find or talk about. All right. Great. So I think that's that for my end in terms of the presentations. Just give me a second. Okay. Yeah, here we are. All right. So that's that for the presentations. And yes, let me just put in one last poll for this. Okay. I'll have just one last poll. And then, so we can go ahead and then fill in the last poll. As we're having that fill, if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand and then I could just call you to answer. So just click the raise hand feature and then I'll be able to call you if you have to or if you need to answer. If I need to answer or if I need you to ask the question, yes. So if any of you wants to ask the question, please feel free to ask and then we can go ahead from there. All right. Okay. I mean, there's only 3 people who answered the poll. If the rest of us could actually go ahead and answer also, that would be good. Ah, okay. Deborah asked of the slide. All right. Okay. So Deborah was asking of the slide. Let me just make a copy of this and then I'll share that with you guys. I think yesterday I had a session on security. I wanted to actually make a specific comment as to in terms of sharing the file. So I think maybe I could just use this opportunity to share that with you guys as well. Because in as much as we use all of these tools, okay, one of the things that you find is that you make files accessible to people who are not supposed to access it. So automatically you see that the file here is actually restricted in some sense. Now, the moment I open that up and then I say that anyone in the link can access that, I have to be conscious of the permissions that I get. For anyone who would actually want to have access to this, it means that I have to give a viewer permission. Now, if I give an editor permission, it means that the person can actually take over the slide and then just do whatever they want to do. And that applies to, let's say, a sheet like this. Okay, so sharing this, because it's restricted, it means that I could just add specific people, okay, to that. And that's helpful, or that's like the best way to go. All right. That's if I know the people. But if I'm sharing it across board, it will be ideal to just maybe give viewer permissions, or let's say a limited form of permission. All right. So that's just one thing I wanted to add. Let me just share the link here in the chat. All right. So I've put the link in the chat for anyone who might be interested. Okay. Yes. So it's active, but it was just for demonstration purposes. Okay. Someone was asking if the Telegram channel I used was active. It's actually just how do you call it? It's a temporary place or a demonstration, like just to demonstrate how to go about using Telegram productively. Okay, but I mean, there are other you can have your own space and then make that happen as well. Okay, so you don't necessarily need to use the one that I use or use the particular Telegram channel that I use. That's just for demonstration purposes. But anyone can actually sign up on Telegram. It's very straightforward. All you need is your number, and then you can go ahead from there. All right. So thanks for that question. And is there anyone else who has any other question as we round up? All right. I don't believe there's any question. I shared my LinkedIn channel, LinkedIn profile in the chat. You could actually go ahead and then connect as well. Thank you all so much for joining.